Hello everyone, this is KansaiDorito, and welcome to Into the Gachaverse. We're going to dive into some of the other gachas I've played, gachas I've been recommended, and gachas I've been interested in playing but never quite got around to, and tell you if they're worth getting into for their stories, gameplay, and personalities. As you probably know, I've been playing gachas for a long time, from the 2D sprite-based auto-battlers all the way to the most recent 3D Hoyo type adventure gachas, and as someone who's got preferences, I've definitely got games I prefer, so biases will definitely be in play here. That being said, I'm going to talk about some of each game's strengths and weaknesses, in the hopes that you could decide for yourself whether something properly clicked with you, and discuss its monetization, free-to-play friendliness, and be forthcoming about how much I've personally spent and how that might affect my perception. On today's episode, I wanted to talk about what I consider to be the modern era gacha games, which basically means everything that came out after Genshin. So, without further ado, let's get right into this with the most recent mega hit in the gacha community as a whole. UmaMusume Pretty Derby. So, Uma's got a lot going for it. Great characters, my favorite song in the whole world, a booming community of players, a solid cutesy story, and a whole-ass anime you can see your favorite Umas being themselves in. In my opinion though, the best thing this game's got going for it isn't even that. To me, it's the proper introduction to the sport of kings, horse racing, and all the history and lore that comes attached to it, which, if you know your shit, makes you realize that the Uma devs really know their shit, and absolutely adore their source material. While the content creator space for this game is definitely lacking and full of slop, good creators do exist, like Sketchy the Horse Guy, an actual horse racing enthusiast who knows his shit and does an incredible job talking about some of the Uma's real-life counterparts, as well as non-Uma horses. Personally, I highly recommend him. The actual game itself isn't without flaws though. For the uninitiated, it's a roguelite breeding simulator where you train horse girls and watch them race. You pick a horse girl, or two quote-unquote parents that decide the skills and stats she's gonna inherit, and a deck of support cards that further decide the skills and stats, but also apply bonuses. This is where the gacha system comes in, since support cards are pulled and Umas are either pulled or earned at an extremely slow rate via star pieces. Uma works on a spark system, with a 3% chance per pull to pull an SSR, with 200 pulls required to guarantee. That 3% is a bitch though, and feels so much worse than it is on paper, to the point that I actually didn't believe it when I looked it up. With a deck of 5 support cards and up to 4 dupes per card if you want to get the most of them, it can get super pricey, and one look at all the poor bastards trying to max Kida-san Black will show you. On the bright side, once you have your deck, you're probably set forever, since good support cards stay good for a long time, and with the JP patch of the game being 4 entire years ahead, the best strategies for what you're pulling are absolutely solved. Same goes for the actual training strategy. Since the JP patch is so far ahead, the game's effectively a flowchart at the higher end of playing, which definitely gets old fast, but the game introduces a lot of randomness to keep it fresh. Random events, random hints, random getting blocked in the final stretch of a URA qualifier with McQueen and placing 13th despite being #1 favorite with triple-double rings. Fuck! The randomness definitely hurts it in my opinion. Losing a race you were supposed to win because Haru got pickles on her fucking hamburger the day before the race definitely makes you feel a little helpless sometimes. But then again, it's a gacha game, about horse racing, and any Japanese salaryman will tell you how absolutely fucking brutal it can be in its outcomes. In total, I've spent about $100 on Uma, mostly to get McQueen some fucking cards so she could win for once in her fucking worthless life because I wanted to see my cute horse girl be happy, and I definitely don't regret it. But spending isn't entirely necessary. Plenty of successes with my non-McQueen Umas funded entirely with all the free pulls and currency that Cygames gives out. The game is solid, and I can recommend it if that seems like your kind of game. Bonus points for Tokai Teo sharing the same voice actor with Sharkry, which takes this game from good to very good. God bless my horse shark. Before we get to the next game, I wanted to talk about Book of Yogg, which, yes, the name is strange, but hear me out since it's today's sponsor. Book of Yogg is a Diablo-like hack-and-slash gacha RPG that's currently celebrating its 3rd anniversary. The basic gist is a pretty classic formula. You play as Marth from Fire Emblem and guide your troop of waifus as they beat the mother-loving snot out of anything that looks mean. The gameplay is simple, relaxing even, and has a couple auto functions that let your party fight and progress level to level while you take care of other things. On top of this PvE stuff, there's a PvP arena, and even a guild system to connect with your boys. For a game made by such a small studio, I think it's a solid outing. I'd actually heard of it before they reached out to me because of the Centaur horse lady, Kimberly, who, wow, and after spending, some time looking at some of the characters, realized that these girls are definitely the standout feature of the game. They come in quite a few shapes, species, and sizes, and most of them have customizable outfits that let you remove pieces and accessories off their clothes, putting the goon ball in your court. You can even mess with certain parts of their outfits, socks and stockings mostly, which are the best parts if you ask me, but some characters let you mess with a bit more. Some of these fits get so skimpy I don't really think I'm gonna get away with showing it to its full extent on YouTube, so if this at all interests you, you can find Book of Yogg on Steam for absolutely free, and help support the sponsors that support me. Now let's move on to Nikke. If you've seen any of my other videos, you probably understand that I hold Nikke very close to my heart. I think its world, character design, music, and ass jiggle are second to none, and its focus on its gun-toting cyborg girls tickles my brain in all the right ways. While the community is definitely a dud, it's well past its honeymoon as it pushes towards its third year, so its current state is definitely understandable. Steer clear of its official Discord server too. Seriously, the mods there are some of the worst community managers I've ever had the displeasure of sharing existence with. Its content creator scene is also very lacking, but I mean, you could always watch Hero Mystic. Funnily enough though, the game's biggest drawback is the gameplay. Nikke is a third-person stationary shooter, and with most of the game's content, you're probably just gonna auto it. If I'm being honest, its shooting mechanics aren't good enough to warrant taking manual control, with the main exception being boss fights, where the auto AI isn't quite there enough to avoid a boss's kill mechanics. Game shooting gameplay usually just boils down to shoot the circle and activate your burst. While chance mechanics are non-existent and you definitely feel in control, the game usually ends up boiling down to, do you have the right units, are they strong enough, and can you aim at the right thing so they don't die? Now, if the game played like this and was super easy to idle, I wouldn't have such a problem, but unfortunately, the game needs constant attention while you're playing it, since beating levels doesn't auto-advance to the next stage and start itself, and the auto AI isn't all that great. The game's time is unfortunately spent clicking through menus, and the story, while generally good, definitely has some jank to it. While Shift Up has definitely expressed a willingness and even intention of fixing some of this, 3 years is a bit late, and I dropped the game after about a year. Monetization-wise, Nikke does it a lot like Uma, on a Spark system, but unlike Uma, its banner pity carries over, making obtaining characters extremely doable, even as a free-to-play. It moves almost all characters to the standard banner after their banner finishes, letting you obtain all but limited units at your leisure. And with a 4% all-the-time SSR rate to boot, meaning you're getting an SSR every 25 pulls on average, which is incredible. Nikke also doesn't lock abilities or skills behind dupes, giving your Nikke a simple stat increase for each time you acquire them up to 10 times. Now, 11 dupes to full max out a character sounds really bad. That's because it is. It's also got plenty of cosmetic skins to buy, which sell at a flat price, which is great. A bit pricey for what you're getting, but I've bought a few and I don't regret it. Nikke does have another monetization system. A system that strikes fear in even the most jaded, veteran gacha players. Did you hear that? Oh no, it's Skin Gacha! Nikke's Skin Gacha, like basically all that I've ever been introduced, did not launch with the game, and was implemented later. Unfortunately, the Nikke community failed to properly sway Shift Up, and thus this specter rears its ugly head every so often. As far as skin gachas go though, it's not the worst, guaranteeing the skin in $60, which is still absolute dog shit, but whatever. Skins and girls in Nikke are definitely nice to ogle at, and the bond interactions let you spend time with each girl in your harem pretty effectively. Overall, I've spent a couple $100 on Nikke, all of it before its first anniversary, and then the game kinda fell out of my direct interest. But you don't really have to. Most of that money was on skins, since consistent play is all you really need to start amassing enough girls to start beating all the game's content. Despite all the game's issues, I could tentatively recommend the game. If Shift Up makes those quality of life changes they want to make, I could properly recommend it. Now, as we move forward, I'm going to refer to this game a lot for a bunch of the precedents it both made and popularized, so to set a proper foundation, let's just cut the shit and jump right into Genshin Impact. It may come as a surprise to some of you, but I played Genshin every day for like 4 years, from its launch to the end of Fontaine, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Its visuals and music are among the best in the biz, and at the time I played it, the exploration was simple and fun. It's definitely come at a cost though. For the uninitiated, Genshin Impact is the most expensive game ever made, with a current budget estimated at $1 billion. Yeah, billion. With a B. At its launch, the community was absolutely massive, absolutely unavoidable, and completely insufferable. Fast forward to now, the community is much smaller, but doubly insufferable to compensate. Feels like it gets harder and harder to find a normal fucking person that actively plays this game, which is a huge part of why I and many others stepped away from the game and usually hide any evidence that it was ever a part of our lives. Coming back to it for this video though was kinda nice, and if I'm being honest, I left my account in a great state and came back to being able to shit on everything the game throws at me with a bit of effort. Genshin's combat still holds up for me, with loads of different diverse but equally effective team comps bringing their own brand of pain to anything even remotely adversarial. Despite what a lot of people that haven't played this game in their fucking life say, no, it's not like Breath of the Wild. It's a hot-swapping third-person fantasy RPG that, unlike a lot of games with element systems in other games, doesn't rely on countering elements as much as combining them to make things blow up, with different characters applying one of the core elements with their attacks. Obtaining characters, though, is where the game's infamy lies. Genshin was the game that truly popularized what I'm gonna call the Hoyo slot pity system, that I will now explain in full. Each pull has a 0.6% chance to pull a 5-star unit until you hit 75 pulls. At 75 pulls, you get what's referred to as soft pity. Past the soft pity point, your chance of pulling a 5-star increases as you approach 90 pulls, ramping up to 100% chance at 90. Now, notice I said 5-star instead of the character you want. Well, that's because even after going through all those pulls, your chance of obtaining the rate-up character is 50%. The other 50% is shared amongst the game's standard, non-limited 5-star units. However, if you lost the coin flip the first time, you're guaranteed the rate-up unit the next time you get a 5-star, no matter when that is, after which the entire system will reset. With an average of 62 pulls per 5-star, doubling if you lose the 50-50, you'd hope this was the game's sole monetization method. However, all of this also applies to the character's weapon banner, which for a lot of characters is ridiculously large jump in stats, especially specialized characters like Hu Tao, who are basically unable to build properly until they acquire it. To shit the bed even harder though, Genshin weapon rate-up banners have 2 weapons, and both split the 75% rate-up chance on a 5-star draw. For the first year of the game, you could technically pull an infinite amount of weapons before the one you wanted, since there was no pity system that guaranteed to get a particular weapon, just one of the 2 rate-ups. Eventually, they would add a system that guarantees a specific weapon after 2 5-star pulls, which is still abysmal, and recently dropped it even further to 1 before a guarantee, which is still bad, but better than potentially infinite torture. For having such a brutal gacha system, it's a miracle I came out on the other end with as much as I did, having spent well over 2 Gs on the game over the 4 years I played it. I was definitely one of the lucky ones. Reading those numbers and probabilities with hindsight now sends a chill down my spine as I realize what easily could have been. Besides that though, Genshin has plenty of free-to-play team comps and one-time purchase outfits that aren't too offensive to the wallet, as well as a good chunk of limited free outfits. It's also got a lot of great character designs, some of which are my favorites in all of fiction, like the cute as hell Hu Tao, Farina the goddess of flat chests, and Jean. That being said, I can't say I recommend it. As much as I enjoyed coming back to it shortly, I gave myself a headache thinking about having to spend hours gathering materials in the open world and progress the extremely subpar story the game was devolved into. And if you've been on the fence about getting into it for the first time, it's really late, and you have months of catch-up ahead of you. Speaking of open worlds and months of catch-up, Wuthering Waves. A game that on paper does a lot of what Genshin does better. Even the community, which is infinitely less annoying, which on paper isn't saying much because it's being compared to the Genshin community, and in practice means the WoW community is still super fucking annoying sometimes. Don't mention the sexuality of a fucking Wuwa character unless you're really hoping to get a fucking migraine. Personally, I played Wuwa a bit after its launch for like an amount of time, and if I'm being honest, I was completely burnt out on open world action gachas. Coming back to it, I was underwhelmed. I quit pretty early and those starting areas and dialogue were forgettable. When I hit the Black Shores, the game really started to find its footing, and by the time Runaskita hit, it was fucking flying. The game's strength though, at least to me, has always been its great writing. Now, early on, getting yap-yapped might make you think otherwise, but stick with it. It'll get better. Or don't. I'm not your fucking dad. Go play Bloons or something, you fucking zoomer. The combat is flashy and simple, but enjoyable. Not much strategy outside of general rotations, but dodging and movement keep it fresh fight after fight, and not having to worry about countering elements gives you a lot more freedom in running whatever characters you want, especially since your party size is so limited, with only 3 characters making up a team, which really sucks. These girls are hot as fuck, even with the severe overabundance of fucking spats in the game. Now, Wuwa's gacha system is definitely a step up from Genshin's on all fronts. Character rate up pity goes up to 80 pulls instead of 90, with soft pity starting at 65, and while it's still got a 50-50, the weapon banner does not. When you get a 5-star, it will be the single weapon on the banner, which is totally awesome, with the one downside being that 4-star weapons are damn near useless. With the date the game released, it's clear they were trying to make it more fair than Genshin systems, and I can appreciate it. It made the transition from Genshin to Wuwa a lot easier to wrap my head around. Add on the one-time buy skins, and I can honestly say I recommend Wuthering Waves. Again though, you're gonna have to work past that opening chapter before you get to the meat and potatoes of the game. If you ain't got the time nor patience to slog through it, more power to you. Either way, I hope I've helped you at least a little bit on your gacha journey. If you see any more gachas you'd like me to try or review, you can leave a comment and I'll take a look-see. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, but most of all, I hope you stay strapped.